Today, we're very excited to have Dan Lehman. Many of you, probably all of you, have seen his videos. Dan has a phenomenal YouTube channel covering all things no code and obviously SmartSuite. We love sharing Dan's videos with our customers, and Dan has some really awesome use cases. Dan is also the CEO and founder of Automation Helpers, which is a no-code agency helping a ton of clients achieve their automation needs and software needs. Dan will share more about it, but I can just attest to the phenomenal service they're able to deliver to their clients and the cutting edge projects they're able to achieve. Automation Helpers and Dan are very advanced in their automations and usage of different platforms and connecting multiple platforms. And so today we have Dan here with us to help us understand how to get your sales CRM fully automated. And so I'm excited to see all the automations and cool hacks I'm sure Dan is bringing to the table. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn over to Dan to introduce himself and his company and to dive right in to show us what we have today.
Awesome. Thanks, Avi. Yeah, I appreciate the introduction. So I work for a company, Automation Helpers, that we started over the last 9 months. I've been working in the enterprise tech space before that. So I was working at Zoom, and we got acquired from an AI startup that we were doing. And one of the things that I got really excited about throughout my career is seeing lots of different CRM implementations. So I've worked on Microsoft, Zoho, a little bit of Salesforce, Dynamics, SugarCRM, and there's certain things that we see. People get tribalist about their CRMs as they're building it, and they get really gung-ho about what they're building. But one of the things that I found is that, the biggest thing that counts is making small incremental improvements. And the reason I love using SmartSuite with our clients is because we get to iterate really quickly. So I'm all about the small wins as opposed to these huge projects and trying to get everything built inside the system. And so today's message, I guess, the takeaway from this is how we can get those quick wins. And the quick wins that I'm going to show you that work for us and how we build our CRM might be a little bit different from you. But just to set the stage here, let me click on the next screen here. I want to talk about why CRM implementations fail, which is a weird way to start. But for many of you, as you're thinking about it, you see this vision of success of setting up your sales team with SmartSuite. And I want to talk about why a CRM might fail. Now, this is from a Forrester report, and they talk about four kind of main pillars or four main areas of why it might fail. One is around strategy. That makes sense. Lack of attention to process. Yeah, you wouldn't want to build something and not understand your process. But I think the last two are really key here, which is if you're focusing on the technology rather than the people, and then failure to adopt. And so CRMs really started off as this management tool, right? People wanted to track and make sure that their sales reps didn't run off with their client data if they went and started their own companies. So it's very much a command and control kind of tool. And so what I see is CRM implementations where companies start and they're saying, oh, we want these metrics and we want to track this, and here's what our executives want to see. That's important, but it's missing the whole point if it doesn't actually make your sales team's jobs easier as part of it. If it's just a tool where they enter data, then later on, you're going to have stale data because there's no incentive for the sales rep to keep updating it. And this is something that I think is really key, is making sure that it drives that value early on in the process. Now, I mentioned that when it comes to tools that people like to use, people get a little bit tribalist. If you go on Reddit, people are always having a debate between Salesforce or HubSpot. Oh, this is the better tool, and here's why. But what I found is that it's really not about the tool. And Avi, I know you're going to be like, but SmartSuite is the tool. And I do think SmartSuite's the tool, and I'll talk more about that. But the reason that people say, oh, this is the best tool or that's the best tool, they're not actually looking at the different dimensions of what makes a CRM actually successful for their users. So your length of sales cycle, if you have a 1-day sales cycle versus a 9-month or 2-year sales cycle, it's going to look different for you on how you implement. If you have products versus services versus commodities, if you're just selling things out the door versus you're really tailoring or customizing what this looks like for your team, that's going to look different. How much is the customer lifetime value? Do you have sales reps who are managing the relationship throughout the life cycle? Is it relational? Is it transactional? Do you sell through partners? Do you sell through a distribution network? All of these things make a difference. And then also being able to integrate to your existing business applications makes a huge difference. So why then, if I'm like, the tool doesn't actually really matter, why do we use SmartSuite for so many of our implementations? The reason is because we can iterate really quickly. So I can build something and get it in the hands of sales reps within the first week of working with a sales team, and they're using it and they're providing feedback, and we go from there. Many other applications, it's okay, Salesforce, you can build everything that you need, but it's going to cost $1 million to be able to implement it. And it's not going to be nearly as iterative to be able to do that. So that's why I get really excited about SmartSuite projects, is because we can build exactly what our clients need and then get that feedback and get it in their hands and using it right away. So let's jump into the application. Just to set the stage a little bit, I'm going to focus mostly on what we've done within our own Automation Helpers CRM. I'd love to show you what we're doing with our clients, but as you can imagine, that's some of the secret sauce of what makes our clients tick and how they operate and do what they do. So I'm going to show you some examples that we've done ourselves, but I hope this is really a launching point for further conversation about, Dan, what about XYZ, or how would we handle this? So there's going to be plenty of time at the end for Q&A that we can talk through that as well. But as we discuss this, I don't know if you remember, maybe about 10 years ago, Google was really big on their 20% time. It was making a lot of splashes in the media. It was essentially the idea that Google gave their engineers time to be able to work on their own project, something that would benefit people aside from their main job responsibilities. And as you can imagine, with a company with a name like Automation Helpers, it's been our goal for our team to spend about a day a week or part of a day a week trying to automate our own internal systems. So if we have a process that we're doing over and over again, it's ripe for automation. Usually it's Friday afternoons, and then we're automating that. So a lot of these processes came out of what we're doing there. Now, some of these are going to be like, Dan, that's really common sense because you've been using SmartSuite a while. And others of them are going to be a little bit more advanced. So I hope there's a good mix in here for all of you who are getting started. So first thing I want to mention is on our website, we're actually using SmartSuite forms to collect lead information. So we focus mostly on inbound traffic. As Avi mentioned, we've got a YouTube channel and we're creating content. And usually it's folks who come across us on LinkedIn or YouTube who are reaching out to us. And to do that, we've got a SmartSuite form embedded right here. Now, lots of other no-code applications, you have to bring a third-party form solution in order to be able to have it work with the tool of choice, but SmartSuite forms are really good out of the box. And I say this because we actually were built on Airtable before we switched over to SmartSuite, and we saw an over 5x reduction in the amount of time it takes to load on the page with SmartSuite. So this is huge, right? Because you don't want leads falling off who are interested in working with you. And it's been a big thing for us not to even have to use a third-party tool. We can just use SmartSuite forms. So just to give you an idea, if you've got any kind of record inside of the system, one of those views that you have the ability to create is a form. And we just created a really simple one because we don't want to put a bunch of extra work on the user to be able to get a hold of us. We've got their name, organization. But if you haven't checked into it, you've got the ability to have conditional logic here. So you could say, only show this kind of field if we have a drop down and they select a certain value. So we're able to capture that information right off the bat. Now, when the user fills in that form, right away, we want to use some automation to get this in front of us. As you can see, even though there's a few fields, we want to be able to say, hey, go ahead and create a contact record for us so that we know who we're talking to. We want to go ahead and create a new organization or company record, and we want to link all of this together. So when we got started right away in building our CRM, we created an automation just quite simply to create a contact and account from the form submission. And so we'd say, when we create this new form submission, then we're going to go ahead and add these fields that we need to our contact record. We're going to take an account record and we're going to add those fields, and then we're going to link them all together. Now, today, my goal isn't to teach you how to build said automations. We've got lots of individual YouTube videos that are going to walk you through the same processes. It's more to kind of give you an idea of things that you might want to automate as well. Now, this worked for a while, right? We were a brand new company and we had leads coming in, but then we started to get repeat folks who maybe we finished up a project and then they came in because they wanted an additional integration later. And that's something where we said, okay, we got to take this a step further. We want to check and see, is there already a contact record in the system before we go ahead and create a new contact and an account? Because it gets a little bit messy if we're not checking for that. So that's where we added a second automation, which is to check for our existing contacts. So now what we do is we have a form submission come in and we look to see if a contact record already exists by that person's email address, because usually their email address isn't changing. And then what we do is we're updating that contact to link to that form submission record, and we're done at that point. We'll still send some notifications, but we don't need to create a new contact and account. And so one of the tricks that we do with a lot of our clients where we need to have kind of these multi-step automations is at the end, we're updating some kind of field, because we say we want to check for these contacts. And then after we check, we want to trigger another automation. So if you have these two-step automations, I recommend just adding a field, typically a yes/no field. You've got a nice little toggle there. You can check this as yes, and then that's what we can use to actually trigger that second automation to say, oh, okay, if that check to equals yes, then go ahead and trigger that. So we're able to create multi-step automations by essentially triggering that based off of the output of our last automation that we create. All right, so at this point, we've got our contact and our account record that comes in. One of the things that we want to do is we actually automatically generate a Google Doc folder for all of the documents that we have. Now, we love SmartSuite's Smart Docs, and there's a lot we can do in there for note-taking. But at the end of the day, we still have a lot of collaborative docs that we do with our customers. We give them a folder. They can upload any process information they have into one space. And so that gives us a common area in which we can operate. So one of the things that we do is we use make.com, formerly called Integromat. And we prefer Make because we have a little bit more flexibility there, but we've got clients who use both Make and Zapier. And so what we do is we say, okay, on creation of that, we're going to create a new folder inside of a prospects. Now, this is a little bit demo data here, just so that we don't give all of our client information away, but we automatically create this automation helpers folder based off of the account name. And then we create a document for a scoping call. And we're going to show you later in the presentation how we can take this. And this gives us the information that I need before I go in and have an initial call with a prospect. I get all of my information as a little dossier ahead of time that I can take a look at. So we create those documents, but this also then gives us a folder that we can share later on with our clients so that we can upload and collaborate. We actually take this folder and link it back to our contact. So now someone else who's going in, someone on our service delivery team, can click into that folder and automatically find it based off of that make automation. Now, another thing that we do from an automation standpoint is we want to know when our leads come in. So this we can do just using our out-of-the-box automations with SmartSuite. I've got an automation here that when a new lead comes in, I called the send email, but we're actually doing a couple things. We're sending an email, and this is coming to me, team at Automation Helpers, and we're sending the information about that lead. And we're also sending it over Slack. So we use Slack as our internal communication tool. I find that the Slack message actually gets here sooner than the email. Sometimes it takes Gmail just a little bit to get that sent. So wherever I am on my phone, boom, a new lead comes in. I can start replying to them right away. And I love the ability just to have notifications. I don't even have to use a tool like Make or Zapier. We can do this all out of the box with SmartSuite. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, Dan, that makes sense because, in our case, I'm a one-person sales team, right? I don't need to send notifications to a whole team. How do we handle it for larger sales teams? In this case, I just want to show you a different example where many of the sales teams we work with, they have some kind of lead distribution, and it might be based on something like the quantity of leads, and they want to round robin it, or maybe they have dedicated sales territories, and based on where that lead is located, then they want to assign it to the right person. So I just want to show you a quick example here. This is some demo data, but we've got 3 different sales reps, and we have them as assigned to. These are users inside of our system. And what we're doing is we're keeping track of the number of leads that we've assigned them, because in this case, they want to go round robin. They want to say, who's had the fewest leads? That person who gets the next lead that we have. So we've got a lead counter here. And what happens is, well, let me show you the logic here. We've got an automation, and we actually have 2 automations for this. The first one is going to say, who is that person that we need to assign this to? So we're doing a find record step, and we're finding the individual sales reps that we need. And then what we're doing is we're incrementing their lead counter and we're linking that sales rep record to the contact as it comes in. And then also what we're doing is we have another automation that triggers to say, when we actually populate that, then grab that assigned to and now assign it to that record. So more importantly, let me just show you how this works behind the scenes. Let's go ahead and just create a new lead and simulate this coming through. So create the new lead record. Oh, let's see. All right, so I've got a new lead. Oh, and by the time I refreshed it, it was already there. So sorry I didn't get to see the automation actually populate. In this case, SmartSuite's automations were too quick for our eyes here. But what it did is it identified me as the sales rep who needed that lead, associated sales rep tracker, found the sales rep. This is a lookup. And then it automatically assigned that based off of my quantity of leads. So if we go back and look at sales reps, this is now increased to 6. So next time it happens, it might be Ben or myself that gets the next leads, and then it keeps giving us the next lead based on who needs this. So again, this is just an example of how we handle lead distribution, and it can be a number of different factors, right? It could be based on the size or different demographics of the lead coming in, but we've got a number of different ways we can handle that so it doesn't take a person actually triaging that before it gets to the sales reps. All right, at this point in the sales process, we want to talk a little bit about what it takes to actually enrich our leads. So we've got leads that come through. How do we find out more information about them? And so one of the things that we do, if I head back into our main CRM here, is as we're looking at our contact information, we can see, again, this is linked to the account that we have, and it's linked to the form submissions that we have. And there's a lot of great BI and enrichment tools that are out there. So one example that we have used lately that we really think is pretty awesome is called Clay. And this is essentially an API aggregator. So rather than saying, oh, I'm going to link to this API and pull back some information, and then I need to go to this one and pull back some information, this actually has a ton of different endpoints you can use to pull back information about LinkedIn and enrich their company data and pull it back. But the thing is that the pricing is not necessarily for the faint of heart. So if I click on the pricing here, you can see it's not the cheapest tool that's out there. But what I want to share with everybody is that, again, it depends on your business, right? So if you're working with Fortune 500 companies, you absolutely want a tool like this to be able to enrich your data. But if you're in a smaller organization and you're dealing with decision makers directly at the company and you don't need all of this kind of information, this is actually overkill. And so I just want to show you some quick tips and tricks that you can do if you don't need a full-blown integration to be able to enrich that. So if I head back to the CRM, one of the things that we've done before is we have clients that have different data sources that they tap into. So for us, it's oftentimes LinkedIn, but we've got some real estate folks and they've got their own databases where they're pulling up LLC information. And one of the things that we can do to streamline this and make it more efficient is simply by creating buttons that pull together information to build a query to send into a system. So let me give you an example here. So we use LinkedIn. So I, of course, could go to LinkedIn and then I could hop back and forth and look, okay, here's the information in my CRM. And now what's that guy's name again? Oh yeah, Dan Lehman. And I start searching for that. Oh, what company are they at? And I look that up. But that takes time when you're doing it multiple times. So what we've done, just as a simple way to be able to do this, that will take you 30 seconds to be able to set up, is to create a button here. And if I modify this, what we're looking at is we're actually essentially creating a formula where we're saying, hey, take LinkedIn's URL with their search here. And then we're going to concatenate or pull together those strings of information of the person's name, first name, last name, and then we're going to add their account information as well. So now when I go ahead and click this LinkedIn button for an individual record, it already performs that search query. And so that's just a really quick step that you can do. You might have some other database online. And essentially, if you've got these query URL parameters, you can take that and we can try to simulate it inside a SmartSuite. So that saves us a couple extra steps. Now, if I click on the user, in this case, it's myself, one of the things that we do is we use a tool called Bardeen AI, to be able to pull information from LinkedIn. So they've got a really cool scraping tool that they do here. And so if I click up in my Chrome extensions, Bardeen opens up. Now, here's what I got to say. And Avi's probably thinking about this in the back end. I'm using Bardeen and I'm writing this information to my nice little Google Doc that I have. I find it super useful. But I'd really love if the Bardeen team would go ahead and make an integration to SmartSuite. So if you're on this call and you're like, oh, this Bardeen thing is cool, go bug their team a little bit and send a little SmartSuite love, because I think if we have this integration to SmartSuite, it's going to be even more powerful. But I'm going to show you what I'm doing today, even without a direct integration to SmartSuite. So what we're doing is I have this nice little playbook set up. And if I go ahead and I open this in the builder, this is a pretty simple one, but think about it this way. I've got this prospect's LinkedIn information. I don't want to take time copying and pasting bits of information into my CRM or into this Google Doc. So what do? I want to scrape that information. So they've got a nice little scraper out of the box that we can pull, which just, they've already got the scraper built. You go to a profile, you scrape it, it's good to go. But I don't want to have all the extra fields. They dump back like 30 fields of information. That might be helpful for some people, but I want more tangible information that I can get a hold of. So what I do is I send this information to OpenAI, and I think we're using GPT-4, not ChatGPT, but you can send that information. We're getting a summary of that, and then we're writing it back to, remember at the beginning, we had that Google Doc that we talk about that automatically generated. That's where that information is going. So then we're adding it to this Google Doc. So when I run this, if I go ahead and open up my document here that's created, then this information at the top, this is what's coming from SmartSuite forms that I have writing over from Make. This is the individual, their company, what they need help with that they put in the form. And then down below, this is information coming from OpenAI. It's summarized the information from my LinkedIn profile and wrote it in. So I see some information about the company. I see information about myself. It's got a little bit of extra stuff like he doesn't have any instant messaging accounts, which isn't the greatest. So I think I need to work a little bit on my prompt engineering here. But future iterations of this, I could see probably asking questions like, hey, how would a client in this space benefit from a tool like SmartSuite, and giving that kind of prompt to have some nice talking points. So this is the document that I come into meetings with our prospects, where I've got an idea of who they are, what they're looking for based off of their profile, with honestly just a couple of clicks, rather than trying to organize and pull all this information from different places, because we've got SmartSuite as this central hub. This doc links back into SmartSuite, so I can just say, hey, boom, I've got a meeting with this person. I click on it, it opens it up. So at this point, I'm ready for my meeting with the prospect. We've done some enrichment here. We've pulled this information. Avi, do you have a question? You look like you have something insightful in the back of your mind.
No, I'm just loving every second. We're going to save the questions for the end. And
Okay.
I'll just use this as a quick reminder, folks, if there's any questions, throw them in the Q&A. We'll get to all the questions, but loving it so far.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so from here, I'm ready for my meeting that I have with our prospect. Let me hop back into the CRM that we have. And so one of the things that we do when I have that meeting, let me open up this contact record here for a second. We're using a tool called Fireflies. And actually, we got this idea from the SmartSuite team because Peter, the CTO, had already been using it. And we saw it in some of our client meetings. And we're like, we got to do that too. So what we've done is Fireflies has a little bot that hops into all of our meetings that we have. It could be over Zoom, it could be over Google Meet, and it comes in and it's recording and transcribing the meeting of what happens in the background. But more importantly than just a raw transcription, if I click on this, it's actually summarizing through AI our meeting notes. And I found that this summarizes it better than anybody on my team can usually take notes. So what happens is a prospect meets with me. I'm normally furiously taking notes, and then I got to give those notes on to our delivery team as they help out with the delivery. But what we're able to do is take that summary, plus we've got the recording, plus we've got the transcript, and it makes it just this super easy process to be able to get this. And we also get action items from it as well. So this comes directly from Firefly's AI to be able to write this in. It can detect who's in the meeting. And then what we've done is we use Zapier for this, where we take the information, hey, a new meeting's completed from Fireflies. We take that data and we write it into SmartSuite. So we talked about SmartSuite being the central hub for everything. And that's exactly what we're doing, is that someone on my delivery team could say, hey, what do I need to know about this prospect? I know you had some calls with them, Dan. Those folks aren't actually on those calls, but here they can see all of the information. So if we have 3 meetings with a prospect, now as a team, we get all of that without someone having to sit and listen or listen on 2x speed to go through an hour-long call there. So that's all information. We can even write back the file links. So if you wanted to see a full transcript, it can pull that in, and all of that sits directly within inside of SmartSuite. All right, so our meetings over at this point, I want to talk about another type of interaction that we have with our clients, which is around emails. So we typically, for our clients, create this activities app, which gives us the ability to track different things like email, phone call, SMS. We've done a number of different integrations to email. We've used Make and Zapier. We've done some Ring Central integrations, because ultimately, if you're using SmartSuite as a CRM, you want to be able to have it be the hub of your communications as they come in. You want to have other people on your team be able to see what you're working on. Like I said, we've integrated email and things like that several times before. And what we do is we can open up an email record, and it can show the email that came through, the communication that we had, the subject, who it's associated with. And we've done this time and time again. And we started to think, it almost seems like there's a gap here, because why is it that every client that we're working with, they want to do email and then we build a new integration from scratch? And in fact, regardless of the no-code tool you're using, you probably, if you Google like Airtable or SmartSuite and set it up with email, most people's recommendations are, hey, go ahead and set up Zapier, or go ahead and set up Make. But even then, it becomes really operationally expensive. I just want to show you a tool that we're working on in the background. Let me switch my window here. All right, and this is a tool that we're working on called Syncable. And the idea here is that it's essentially just a couple click configuration where you say, here's my email account, boom, off we go, as opposed to having to say, oh, we have 5 people working at our company. We need to create 5 make scenarios for this. So this is what we're using to actually sync over those emails. But the other part that we're looking to do, I think, is even more forward thinking, is to say, it shouldn't matter where you live to get your work done, right? So if you want to live inside of SmartSuite and enter data inside of SmartSuite, awesome. Or if you're a salesperson and you live in email or you live on your phone all day long, you should be able to operate there, right? So SmartSuite has an awesome mobile app that you can use right out of the box that works. But what happens if you want to see that information inside of your email? So this is a proof of concept. We're still in beta here, but I just want to give you a flavor of this. So we're building an add-on for Gmail to be able to sit there so you can access all of your SmartSuite data inside of that tool. So this pops open on the screen. Let's say we have an email that comes in. And what this does is it's actually pulling from SmartSuite the contact information for this record with fields that are configurable. We'll be able to update these fields on the fly, but not just the fields of that contact record. How do we have related tasks? So if you're a sales rep and you've got opportunities or you have tasks that you need to follow up with a client, maybe we read our email and we have to add a new task. We press our little add button. And again, we've got a broken image there. We're just in beta and starting to test this out. But now we can actually write data back into SmartSuite. And our goal is just to say, SmartSuite is your hub, but you should be able to access your hub through whatever medium makes sense for you. So if you're interested in using this email tool, we're not in public stage yet. We've got a couple clients that are using it. But if you're interested in this, go ahead to syncable.io and sign up for early access there to be able to get information. And now let me head back into my main screen here. All right, and the last thing I want to show is, okay, so we've tracked all this information from our prospects. We've enriched our data. We've had our meetings. They're ready to close. What do we do? And one of the last things that we do is through the contracting phase of this is that when we started this, we were using DocuSign, and we'd go into DocuSign and we'd type in the details and it would populate it into the fields that we needed. But it was a pain because I want to be able to do this on my phone. We've got some folks in the UK and Australia, and we're working at all weird hours of the day. I'm not always sitting there on my computer. And so what we did is we created an integration via Make, where if we change this status to send contract, it goes to Make, it sends it out, comes to my email, I update a couple of fields, and then it updates this to contract sent. And then we write in the link to the DocuSign agreement, so it's here and ready to go. Now, this is all the CRM sales side of things. I think, Avi, if you ever invite us back, we'd be happy to do a second session and dig into our post-sales side, which is how do we do invoicing? How do we keep track of our projects? How do we do all this? How do we automate those processes? But for us, this is the end of our sales cycle. We sign, we then go to a kickoff call. We have automations with Calendly and things like that, as many of you do as well, I'm sure. But I hope this is helpful just to get a taste, a flavor of some of the things that you could automate as part of your sales process. And Avi, I'd love to open it up for questions or whatever you think is next best steps here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dan. Wow. That was quite a demo. So many tools. I would expect nothing less from you, but it was really cool to see the full automated process with all the different tools. And for those who are asking, yes, we're going to be uploading this on YouTube. Please throw your questions in the Q&A area, and we're going to get to them in the order in which they were received. We do have a quick question in the chat from Arnaldo. He's asking, actually, that question was answered. He's just asking, what is the app to record the meetings, which is fireflies.ai. Thank you for sending that in. Barry is asking if you can share a list of all third-party apps you are using with SmartSuite.
Ooh, so it's funny. We've been, in a good way, really swamped with client work. What I want to do is I want to create a little site where we can, share, because we've got a ton that we do internally, but I'd love to hear from other folks who are using SmartSuite and other partners as well. I'm not trying to get away from your request, but I'd love to create something that's collaborative too, even if it starts as a Google Doc and we can do that. But yeah, I'd love to put those applications together. And one thing I want to mention about Fireflies, one of the main reasons that we use it, well, we really like it because of its action items and description. But I would say that you see a bunch of AI tools that are converging because they're becoming a bit commoditized. There's probably, Avi, what would you say, like 6 major players out there for meeting recording space. The reason we went with Fireflies, and I think this will answer one of Laura's questions as well, but we went with Fireflies because they have an integration. It's crazy to me that so many of these tools don't actually have an open integration or API that you can use to integrate to. Some of them have a Salesforce connector, but we're not on Salesforce, so that doesn't really help us. Fireflies, in their cheapest paid plan, has a Zapier integration. And the reason, so we use Make most of the time, but that connector is not available in Make, which is why we're using Zapier for it. If you do the upgraded, I don't know if they call it Pro or Business Plan, it's like $10 a user a month more, then that offers full API access. So you could use Make, but we're being a little bit cheap here and saying, we don't want to upgrade just for the API. So we're doing it via Zapier. But that's why we're using Fireflies. Is we really like their technology, but also we really wanted something that could write back into SmartSuite.
Okay, that's awesome. I think you addressed one of the questions that came in. Okay, let's start. Laura has a question. She said, just to confirm, did Dan need Make to send the email automation to Slack?
No, in the automation that we have here for our lead notifications, this is all purely using just SmartSuite automation functionality. So this send email on form submission, one action is a Gmail action. And this is just, you can go and click in your automations. You can set this up right now. You have to authenticate with your Gmail. And then this is going to impersonate your email. So it's going to make it seem like it's coming from you, which is great because then you can also send automated response to the client or the prospect if you wanted to as well. But this is coming directly from inside of SmartSuite, no Make integration needed. Same thing with Slack. This is another one supported out of the box automatically by the SmartSuite team. So you can just authenticate to Slack, send a message to the channel that you choose, and you're good to go there. So that's really cool. You can do all sorts of powerful notifications, even without using any kind of third-party integration platform.
Okay, amazing. And you already answered the question. If you use Zapier with Fireflies and not Make.
Yeah.
Okay, so Laura has another question. How does Dan transfer lead to sale in SmartSuite? Does it automatically bring them into another solution or app?
Yeah, got it. So this is one of those age-old questions of CRM. So I like to think of the kind of the golden old school age of CRM, which was like, hey, you have a lead, and then on the point of lead conversion, you press a button, and then the lead creates a contact, and it creates a company, and it creates an opportunity. And it was like always this hard-coded process of doing this exact thing. When we talk to our clients, we're always like, do you have a need for that? Because for us, it's so much easier to have contacts and have a, let's see if I have it in here, a type of lead, and then change this to type of customer as soon as they close. Because our thought process is when it comes to creating apps, you want apps to be unique kinds of data. So for contacts, it's all of our people. It could be prospects, it could be leads, it could be people who are partners that we're not even trying to sell to, we're just working with them as partners. And this becomes a philosophical discussion, but I really don't like duplicating and copying data because that's where it starts to get messy in the system. So for us, our close process, I didn't show you all of it, but once they sign the agreement, we have the agreement there. We write in their rates or what we've done with the project inside of the system. We have an automation to change this to the status changing to a customer. We also have it, and this gets to if we get invited back for a second session, but we have it automatically create a project so that now our project delivery team sees the project created with it. So that's our process. When it comes to client needs, it really just depends on what you're looking for, but we don't have this rigorous close process because our needs are usually a pretty quick sales cycle of people saying, hey, we have a project, and then boom, we get right into the project. So I hope that helped answer the question. Yes. So when the type changes, or actually in our case, it's when the DocuSign agreement gets written back into the system, then we know it's actually been signed, because up until that point, it hasn't been signed. So we use the writing in of that link as the trigger, and then we use that to update the type.
Okay, amazing. Taylor has a question over here. He says, we're trying to figure out if we use Zoho, HubSpot, or another tool with SmartSuite. If SmartSuite can do it all, especially for lead gen marketing analytics, what contact has interacted and downloaded what content piece or gone to a webinar, etc. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say that a tool like HubSpot, their play in it is that they've got like super awesome marketing automation tools built in, and then they've got a really lightweight CRM. And I know if you're a HubSpot partner on this call, you'll probably argue with me on that, but like really the core has been on the marketing automation side for that. So I wouldn't typically try to turn SmartSuite into a full-blown marketing automation tool. Now, when I say that, what I mean to say is like you can use it for transactional automations and sending emails, but you're typically not going to use it for like full-on email blasts and things like that. So what I've found really helpful is to be able to use SmartSuite as that hub, but then typically integrate to a lighter weight marketing automation tool. So MailerLite, MailChimp, there's some other options that are out there. So you have your customer master data inside of SmartSuite, and then you use that to say, oh, if this contact updates, then update it inside of the marketing automation tool, update that contact inside of MailChimp. So now you can send out all of your marketing oriented emails from there. So it's both kind of a cost play, right? Like you don't want to stack up too many tools in the ecosystem, but you're going to be able to iterate faster. To distill a CRM or to distill SmartSuite down into its just sales functionality is really diminishing the capabilities of what we can do with SmartSuite. Like we use SmartSuite as our full work management platform. So all of our service delivery is on it. We use it for like all these pieces of the life cycle. So something like HubSpot, you're going to get like really good marketing and some CRM, and yay, it's all one platform. But you try to tweak it for your needs and you're going to run into some hiccups. So we've helped migrate some customers off of HubSpot who started there exactly for their marketing automation needs. But one person was in commercial real estate and they came off because they call them deals instead of opportunities inside of HubSpot It's here is a deal. Here is exactly what a deal is. It didn't encompass what they needed for like their real estate property transactions. In SmartSuite, they can tailor this to have exactly the data that they need, the automations, the fields, and everything else. I'm sorry, I'm giving like a super long-winded answer. I get really deep into the philosophical side of this. I guess what I'm saying is, I think you're going to find SmartSuite's a really good choice because it can be tailored around the needs of your business. And some of those other tools, tailoring that becomes more difficult.
Okay. We have another question from an anonymous attendee asking, is Syncable already available? I can't Google it. Maybe we want to throw the link in the chat.
Yeah, for sure. Let me toss a couple of links in the chat, if that's okay. Okay, I'm just tossing all of our links from today in the chat. So Syncable, no, for full transparency, we've had needs from our clients that we're working with, and we're getting our clients set up on there. And we're looking for additional people who might want to be beta testers, or if you just want to sign up and you're like, I don't want to beta test the thing, just let me know when I can be a customer. Go ahead and sign up on that list. What we're doing right now is the email syncing part of it, where like the data automatically syncs over. And the kind of the next phase of what we're building is that add-on portal. But the website is syncable.io. And we're just starting to roll this out, but we think it's going to be really powerful in the space because Salesforce, they can do it. HubSpot can do it. Some of these tools that are built just as a CRM, they've got that functionality, but for the no-code space, we haven't really seen anything that can do that. And that's the gap that we're trying to fill.
That's awesome. And we have a question over here from Dominic regarding Dan scraping his LinkedIn profile to create a summary. Can you use the same tool to scrape Zillow or HAR or an appraisal district website for property data?
Yeah, good question. So I haven't played around with all of the parameters of it, but they in their scraper, they've got both some pre-baked scrapers. Like I didn't have to build the LinkedIn one. It was just like, hey, click a button and it works. So I don't know if they have that functionality for Zillow, but they do have the ability to create your own scraper. So if you have some kind of custom or more niche website, you can basically load Bardeen on there and click on the properties you want it to scrape. And then it builds your own little scraper. And then you can reuse that the next time you want to load it. And just for transparency, so there's some that you do it automated in the background. I'm doing LinkedIn as a one-off, like I click the button. And the reason that I'm doing for that is, you know, all these tools are a little bit different on how protective they are about their data. So I don't want to go do something like scrape 1,000 LinkedIn pages with a click of a button in fear that TOS or suspending accounts or things like that. So just do your due diligence. We've built a lot of scrapers in the past, but make sure that what you're doing is okay as you're building that. Yes, Bardeen.ai. Thanks, Avi.
Sounds good. And it looks like we have one last question over here, unless anyone else jumps in. Can Firefly be used in conjunction with a dialer so that we can have transcripts of sales call, cold call, warm call conversation?
Got it. So I would say that if you're using a dialer, probably that dialer has its own background. I would doubt the dialer is using something like Zoom or Hangouts for it. So in that case, there's probably a specific tool. And if you could get the recording from that tool, then you should be able to feed it into another tool like Fireflies or others who could take that transcript and still run the analytics on it. So it might be like a two-step automation as opposed to running it directly through Fireflies, but there should be a path forward for it. It's just probably taking the output recording that you have from the dialer, feeding it into a transcription service to be able to handle that.
Yep. Okay. Amazing. Let me see. Okay, we have a few more that just popped in. Adam is asking, I know you showed it already, but can we see the automation that checks for a contract, even if you just pull it up? No need to explain.
Yeah, for sure. So yes, if you want to take screenshots, or this will all be recorded anyways, but so when a form submission comes in, we actually don't have any conditions. We're just saying every form submission that comes in. And then from here, we're looking for our contacts app, right? Because our contacts is different than our form submissions. Some people just write the form submissions to contacts, and you can do that as well. But ours, we have a separate contacts app. And then we're saying where the email address of the contact is equal to the email address of the form submission. Because in our world, those two things are usually the same. Typically, we're working with business owners, and so they're not like changing companies every 18 months or something like that. So you might have different conditional logic for that. And then we find these. Now, this step is a little bit tricky, and I encourage you to watch some other videos I have. And I think SmartSuite's doing something to make this step a little bit easier too. But then we're taking the contact records that we find and we're updating it to link to the new form submission as well as our existing past form submissions. And then the last thing that we do at the end is we're updating that field. And that's because we've got that two-step automation where we're saying, now we want to trigger the other automation to then create an account and contact if it didn't actually find any contacts for that.
Amazing. And one last question from Pat. Dan, what are you looking most for new updates coming from SmartSuite?
Ooh, I think the big update, I guess I don't know exactly when it's rolling out. So Avi, I'll leave timelines and that kind of stuff to you. Task dependencies. This is huge. So whenever I talk to our clients, I did an analysis of our last 20 clients we're working with, and they come from 18 different industries. So if that gives you an idea of like how diverse SmartSuite is as a tool to be able to handle different needs, that'll give you some kind of an idea. But I basically say almost every business or organization out there has some sort of sales process and some sort of project management or fulfillment in what they do. It looks different in how you implement it. It's usually some combination of those. And the ability to have task dependencies and say, hey, we've got some kind of delivery and I need you to do this step. And you can't do this step until you've already done this one, and be able to have dependencies and then set the next task and things like that. And tying that into Gantt charts and being able to have a visualization of what needs to be done in what time frame, that's going to be huge. And I know the SmartSuite team's been working really hard on that. And Avi, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, no, the team is working hard on it. There's a few web components that they're using for it, and we're deep into the development. I don't have firm timelines yet, I think, but sounds like a good thing to look forward to because we're definitely working on it. Okay, with that, we'll close. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Dan, for the phenomenal presentation. We are absolutely looking forward to having you back to show us part 2. We'll get working with Emma to schedule that, and really phenomenal.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for the time. Appreciate it. You've got the links in there. If you ever want to reach out, say, hey, I love nerding out with the fellow SmartSuite fans here. So thanks for the time.
Thank you. Have a good one.